Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Pulse of the Pack. This version, of course, it's Friday, Saturday, or close to Sunday, depending on when you are watching this. But we have Team Degenerate in here again. Let's get rich, kids. Last week, a pretty good week for you, Matt. The Packers obviously had you lose a bet, but that's one that we're happy to lose if that is the case in this time. But this week, we're kind of learning a little bit more about how to bet, where to bet, what to bet, those sorts of things, because I think the biggest place where the gamblers get in trouble is when they feel like they have to bet on something. So they just throw bets out there even though there isn't really something advantageous. And the idea here is to get as big of an advantage as you can. But as I mentioned, I am Jacob Westendorf. You are seeing my face here, and we are having some technical issues with the video portion. So we're working on that. But we do have audio for Matt, and we will be able to get him in here. Matt, say hello to the people. How's everything going?
What is up, Jacob? Life is good. Yankees and Packers are rolling. Couldn't ask for much more right now.
Yeah, the Astros were able to finally advance to the American League Championship Series. We're recording this on a Friday, so it was last night. Game one of the ALCS will be tomorrow. Before we get into that, I think I got a feeling of where your prediction lies on that, but are we expecting the Yankees to play in the World Series?
Yankees in five, baby. Let's
Yankees
do
in
it.
five. Okay. Yeah, I will say this for the Astros, they better win the first two, otherwise you're not escaping the Bronx Zoo that comes to wait for you. And I know that you'll be in attendance for one of those games, won't you?
Looking like game four.
Game four, so that'll probably be bullpen versus bullpen unless the Astros decide to pitch Zach Greinke on short rest, which I think
I don't see.
no, I would imagine they want to keep him out of the Bronx if they can, but I don't think they're going to be able to do that. But that's baseball. The New York Yankees, we expect them to go to the World Series, so it's an exciting time. The Packers were able to get a big win last week and go to 4-1. They're going to play on Monday Night Football this week against the Detroit Lions, as an ode to Mike McCarthy with the saying of the phrase Detroit. But yeah, you're not betting the Packers this week, and that's the first time this year that you haven't happened to bet the Packers,
No,
but they are 4-point favorites going into Monday night's game. 4.5 on some places. It kind of depends on where you look, but mostly that number is right around 4. So 1 point above your standard home field advantage points. So since you're not betting the Packers, is there anything that you're looking at from a betting standpoint at this game on what's making you stay away from it?
I mean, I'm trying to be convinced that I could maybe by Monday I might bet the Packers. Maybe I'll be convinced because this line right now, Jacob, I don't understand it. Like you said, 3 points for home field, but actually this is one process point that we could get to right now. I don't use the standard 3 points for every home team. The Packers are one of the only teams that I use a 4-point advantage for them at Lambeau just based on their history, ATS at home. It's not really a crowd noise thing. As you know, it's not that loud at Lambeau. I think a lot of the Packers' home success has to do with the surface. A lot of teams struggle playing on the grass. It really slows the game down. And the Packers have had just so much success at home that I give them a 4-point home field advantage. So that would basically say that these teams are even, which these teams are not even. The Packers are a better team in my power ratings. That's process point where I start the handicap. The starting point is the power rankings. So how I rank the teams, 0 points is an even team, and 1, 2, 2 points, above an average team is how you go. The Lions are exactly at 0 average team. The Packers are 2 points. Actually, they're at 2.5 right now, so they're 2.5 points better than the average team. So if you add in the 4 points for home field, that would put this line at 6.5 in my line. So that's 2 points difference, which is a pretty big difference. I think Detroit right now is a little overrated based upon beating the Chargers and beating the Eagles when they had a lot of injuries. They were fortunate to win both games if you look at the yardage standpoint. They allowed over 400 Chargers. They got outgained by 100 yards by the Eagles. They won because they've got 2 turnovers and a 100-yard kickoff return to win that game. So I think they're a little overvalued right now, but I'm happy the Packers just getting all the injuries right now.
Yeah, my guess is that the Lions are getting some extra credit for hanging in with Kansas City, which really that was a game the Chiefs had several different chances to blow them away as well. You mentioned
Chiefs
something
are
interesting
now,
there.
they're also an injured team. So
Yeah, that's true. Um, so something that you mentioned that was interesting was the you don't use the standard 3 points. So just out of curiosity, now you say the Packers are one of those teams that you look at as a 4 point give for that. Who are the other teams on that list?
for 4 points, Seattle clearly is a 4 point home field. I have a bunch of teams at 3.5. New Orleans, the Patriots, the Chiefs, the Ravens. I think and the Vikings. I think that covers it.
Okay. Okay. Yeah,
And a
that makes
couple
sense.
of teams that are less than they're less than three. There's a bunch of those too. One huge example is the Chargers. I don't think they should. I give them 1 point for home field. They're lucky they even get one. I mean, they play in a soccer stadium. It's 25,000 people. They have no fans there. They have to use silent count a lot of the time. I'm sure when the Packers go there later on in the year, the Chargers will be using the silent count. And their ATS record at home, in recent years, I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but they're horrible. They should, the fact that Vegas still gives them a 3 point home field is ridiculous, and that's why their ATS at home is so bad. And so
Taking
that's
candy
something we
from a
could take
baby.
advantage, in the market if they're not pricing home field correctly, which they do usually just give 3 to every home field.
That's interesting. So you mentioned that, we talked about the Packers a little bit. Maybe you're betting Green Bay. The one other bet that you have this week, you have Arizona +3 at home against the Atlanta Falcons. The Falcons, from a sheer football standpoint, far and away one of the most disappointing teams in the NFL this year. They're really bad, and I don't really know how, I guess. If you look at that roster on paper, you would think that they should be pretty good, but it looks like Dan Quinn's going to be on his way out the door when this season ends. And you've got Arizona here with 3 point. They are a home underdog, which is usually that's something that sets off sirens in my head immediately. But talk me through some of your rationale here for why you like Atlanta to cover that 3 point spread.
Arizona.
Or yes, I'm
Um,
sorry, Arizona at Atlanta, or at home against Atlanta.
right. I was able to get a 3 on DraftKings early in the week, which is now gone. I don't see threes anywhere else. I haven't really seen threes around. Let me talk about why that's so important as a process, type thing here. Obviously, 3 points, 7 points, those are the scoring, plays. 6 is more of a key number now that the extra points are missed more often, but 3 and 7 are the key numbers. And because 15% of the NFL games over the last 20 years have been this. 15% of them are decided by exactly 3 points. 9% of them are decided by 7. 6% are decided by 10 points. So that's why it's such a huge deal to get the 3 points. I don't think Atlanta should really be favored here. I don't understand how they could be favored on the road over anybody right now. They allowed almost 600 yards last week to Houston, who struggled the week before mightily against Carolina. I know that because I lost a bet on them in that week. And Deshaun Watson last week had as many incompletions as he did touchdowns, 5 each. So if you're giving up as many incompletions as you are touchdowns as a defense, that's not good. And they lost Desmond Trufant, just announced out today. Keanu Neal, who they lost last year, is out for the year again at safety. Ricardo Allen's on the injury report at safety. Their defense is a sieve. They can't rush the passer, which is, if you can't rush the passer against Murray, some success. He had his best game in the year last last week against the Bengals, excuse me. And Arizona's, coming in on some momentum. I think they should be able to win outright and get a second straight win at home now.
So there you have that. We've got
And
Atlanta.
honestly, just their stats look good, but they accumulate all their stats after they're down by 20 points this year. I think they're 10th in the league in yards per play on offense, but a lot of that is garbage time.
Garbage time king Matt Ryan in this case. Not quite the title that belongs to Kirk Cousins. I think he's the garbage time king. So forgive me, Kirk. I didn't mean to steal that bit of information from you there. So talk to me, Matt. Here we've got. That's the only bet that we have this week, but we have some more things to talk about, obviously. So, when your week begins, obviously, last week, for example, you bet the Monday night game. When do you start researching? What are some things you're looking for? How do you get to the idea that, okay, I like Arizona +3? You mentioned your power rankings and talked about that a little bit earlier, but obviously, you're not just doing that on your own. You couldn't be successful this way by just doing things with your own thinking and looking up yardage numbers. So, what are some things and key numbers that you're looking for when you're looking to place bets?
But you gotta start early. As soon as the lines come out, you gotta start, because a lot of times those numbers are the best numbers you'll see all week. So you gotta move quickly. I mean, sometimes it depends. Depends where the money is coming in. For example, this is a good one. The Packers Lions over under right now, I think is at 47. So you gotta figure Monday Night Football. The public will come in on Monday. The public is betting overs on primetime games. Why? It's obvious. If you're watching the game, you don't want to sit there rooting for no scoring. And I've seen Aaron Rodgers go. He's definitely got to go over the total. Last 2 weeks, the Packers have gone over against the Eagles and the Cowboys in the big way. I actually like the under. So in this instance, I might wait about to 90 minutes, 2 hours before the game, where it might peak, where you get that public money coming in on Monday, drive it up even a point or two more before the professionals come in and bet it down. So you got to be able to anticipate where the money is coming in, which number. If you see a number you like, where's it going to move? These numbers move constantly throughout the week. And like you mentioned, I start off with the power rankings, just try and spot some value. Then you move into more situational spots. Is this team coming off a bye, coming off a loss? They're in a tough travel schedule. All those factors. Then obviously you go to some X's and O's. Do you have like Dallas last week? Dallas's running game against the Packers' terrible run defense. That's an obvious advantage. And then you got to I look at a lot of the injury reports. The injury reports are huge. I think you have a lot of hidden value in the injury reports, especially when you get cluster injuries, which is a lot of injuries at one position that the line or the public is not really factoring in. So all those things kind of come together to make the handicap.
Okay, so that's an interesting thought there of looking at matchups and stuff like that. So, for example, and I know this didn't work out, obviously, but when the Packers played the Eagles, that's something we talked about really frequently, the situation that those two teams are in. On paper, the Eagles are probably more talented than the Packers are, and they're certainly more highly regarded in the NFL. I mean, you and I both think that the Eagles are Super Bowl contenders. At the beginning of the season, I don't think either of us thought that the Packers were serious Super Bowl contenders, at least at that point. But we both liked Green Bay to win that game because Green Bay was at home for 3 consecutive weeks. Eagles were traveling and they were a little beat up. Now, the Eagles ended up winning that game and covering the spread subsequently. But that I think is an example of a good process over that turns into a bad result, for example. So it's like,
right.
If you go for it as a head coach.
Spot that week, non-divisional favorites at home on Thursday nights were hitting at a 70% clip over like the last 20 games or so. So that's why I was so upset with that loss, because you had the Packers were at that, were one of those teams that should be at that 70% win percentage against the spread, and also the fact that they were at home for an entire month and the Eagles had to come in on Thursday and they were beat up.
Yeah, that was frustrating.
That also is a big reason why I love San Francisco on Monday, this past Monday. Like I mentioned last week, the Browns had so many primetime games, so many games that they had to get up for, that they ran out of gas, I think. They just ran out of energy. You only have so much energy you can use over the course of the 17-week season. There's going to be flat spots. You need to find those flat spots. Cleveland was in an obvious flat spot in San Francisco. like I mentioned last week, was going to be so hyped up for that game Monday night to prove to the world that they are for real, which they ended up doing.
Yeah, they look good definitely to start this season. They're right now. If the season ended today, the road through the NFC to the Super Bowl would go through San Francisco. So that's something I think that you need to keep in mind if you're betting over the weekend is keep the process sound. The results won't always follow. So, for example, if you're the head coach of an NFL team and you're 4th and 1 on the 38-yard line in your opponent's territory, just because you don't get it when your team goes for it doesn't mean your process was wrong. Sometimes things just don't work out. Gambling isn't all that different. In this case, your process is going to be good on a lot of those things. And that's really what I think we're going to try and focus on as we go through the subsequent weeks here of the season is getting the process correct. And something else that I think you can learn, Matt, is that, for example, this week, like you said, you have one bet, maybe two if you are talked into betting the Packers on Monday night. But sometimes the best option, is it not, just to stay away?
Yeah, well, what you think? It's a 20, including the playoffs, including the Super Bowl, it's a 21-week season. Money management is probably the most important thing. If you don't manage your money, you're not going to win. So last week I had a bunch of games. Like the Steelers were my biggest bet of the year, and thank God they came through. I almost fainted when Mike Tomlin chose to kick in overtime, giving the Ravens a chance to get 7 and screw me.
I can't believe he's still employed.
I wonder if he will be after. He might get a pass now with the quarterback situation. Who knows? But and the Ravens were down 3 for a lot of the fourth quarter, and they had multiple chances to go up and score a touchdown and beat me by half a point. So that was very frightening game. So to say the least. So luckily I was able to get that cover there. But yeah, money management, it's obvious, you have to obviously manage your money for a 21-week season. If you bet it all and you have a bad week, if you go 0-3, you're going to go. I had a week a couple weeks ago where I went like 1-4. And that's going to happen. The best handicappers are only going to hit 60%. You're going to lose 40% of the time. You have to be ready for it. So if you're not managing, you have no chance. Especially when you're going against, you're laying $1, minus 110 on most games. Which, if you don't know, that's the VIG. So you have to bet $110 to win $100 each week, on a game. That's the normal juice. Obviously, the juices vary from game to game. So you're already up against it when you're laying the juice. So, money management is key.
Something that you talked about earlier and you kind of make fun of with me on the side very often is what you call Joe Public. And my question is, how do you spot something like that? What does that mean to the layman's term person who's just trying to get into these things? And how do you combat that with your research and experience?
Oh yeah, Joe Public. I have a website and there's a few websites that do it. I use pregame.com. They have, the percentage of the money that's on the tickets and the percentage of the cash on the team. So if you have a high percentage of the tickets on one team, but the higher percentage of cash on the other team, that means the public is, on one team, but the people are betting the higher totals, which is usually the professional bettors are on the other side. Now, I don't blindly follow against the public, or definitely not for the public. Most of the time I'm against the public. But, it's a start because obviously, common sense, these casinos are rich for a reason. They're going to win most of the time. Now, you have a game on Thursday where the Patriots seem to be the exception. They cover the spread no matter what. So besides for the Patriots, which all the public bets, normally you typically want to be on the other side, which is why most of my bets, more of them are underdogs, which has been they've been hitting this year at a big rate. A lot of them are home underdogs. A lot of them are ugly underdogs that the public doesn't want to back, especially if they saw them play, a terrible game the week before. A lot of my bets are just betting overreactions from the week before. I think that's always a profitable thing because people, Joe Public is going to, usually remember more the last thing he saw. And that's not how the NFL works. It's a week-to-week league. You can look one way one week and a completely different way the next week.
Yeah, and that'll happen pretty frequently. So we are out of time for today's show, but we'll go through these processes and thought process and everything throughout the course of this season. Obviously, the goal here is to get you guys in a good position to make your best bets and make some money. So you can follow the show. It's at Packer Pulse on Twitter. You can follow me. I'm at Jacob Westendorf. And you can follow Matt. He's at Matt Bove HS. Hopefully the next time we're talking, Matt, the Yankees have clinched a spot in the World Series. Thanks for joining us, and we will talk again next week. Packers-Lions Monday night for those of you guys that want to pay attention to that sort of thing. I assume that you do if you're watching this video. Packers-Lions Monday night, and we'll learn next week if Matt decided to bet that game. So stay tuned for that. Thank you guys for joining Pulse of the Packs version of Team Degenerate.